Welcome to Champions Talk Videos. I'm DJ Shortbus, and this is the basics for how to set up your builds so your powers, rolls, and equipment are ready when you need them. If you've only played an Archetype or ATs before, you may have noticed that on top of my power tray is a lot of build tabs for the builds and passive tray. This is going to be the main subject for this video. One of the things I love about freeform characters is that I can have a bit more versatility in powers and roles when I am going about my superhero business. Let's go a little over this build for Bastille. She is a laser sword wielder. You can tell from her specializations, her primary super stat is intelligence. And the main reason for intelligence is that is what Particle Accelerator, her former toggle, scales with to increase her damage. Her secondary stats are Constitution for more health and Dexterity for more crit chances. I went with Glacier for more of the same super stats. One thing I've noticed with this character is that I do not need a lot of endurance or recovery, as the benefit of energy cost reduction from intelligence is enough for Laser Sword powers activations. Alright, enough of that. As you can see, I have no powers other than default block on my power tray, and no equipment other than my inventory bags. One way we can add our powers is with dragging and dropping from the power window to our tray. So I'll take my energy builder and put that in spot number 1. Another way we can put powers into our build is by bringing up our character window. Right click on your portrait, select info, and you get your overview. You can see what my super stats are. Yeah, okay, neat. Next, we click on the Builds tab, and we have our power tray as well as equipment and 2 pull-down menus, which are build name and role. And you can see my energy builder is right there. Speaking of powers, let's add some more. The power I like to have in the number 2 slot on my melee build is usually my lunge. So let's take my lightspeed dash and drop it into my tray below. And when I do that, you will see that it is in the build window as well. Next is my combo power. This time, instead of dropping it below, I will add it to the builds window, or add it through the builds window. And again, what happens in the one happens in the other, so long as they're both set for the same build. One thing you might have noticed is that while my block down here has 3 buttons above it, up here in the window I have another spot for a power. This is for the slotted passive. Since this is going to be my melee damage roll, I want to add in an offensive slotted passive. In this case, it is Quantum Stabilizer. And in the description it says it can be used in the offensive or balanced roll. Also, I have regeneration. More about that later. Right now we're in the balanced roll, so let's drag and drop that power into the slot. And as you can see, it is in the window here as well. I could have also dropped it in here. Alright. Let's change up the roll. When you hit this menu, you can see your options for rolls. You can also see the pluses and minuses to select each one. Let's see what happens when we select the wrong roll. I select support, and poof, there goes my slotted passive. Since Quantum Stabilizer is for either the offensive or balanced roll, and support is neither of those, it goes poof. Alright, let's get the right one in here. I want melee damage. You can see I get some bonuses when I use this roll, as well as some negatives. Chief among these is the final print saying how my super stats increase all my damage I do, as well as reduce my threat generation. Now that I have a roll that meets the requirements, I can slot Quantum Stabilizer. Quantum Stabilizer increases my energy damage and a few other things. The numbers might look like much, because I do not have my equipment and their stat increases loaded yet. You can tell this is the melee roll here, and by this little fist on the left-hand corner. Let's add the rest of the powers. A little plasma cutter for doing big damage after adding some plasma burns for my combo. Particle wave for bringing them to me. I like having my toggle up here where I'm not likely to accidentally turn it off. Also, I like having my main attack buttons. We'll be hitting a lot down here, so when I use WASD for movement, my W finger can easily activate an attack. Let's replace the default block with Energy Shield. Unified Theory is an energy unlock. You never have to slot these. In fact, you couldn't if you wanted to. Let's go ahead and put in my travel powers, either in the T or Alt-T spots. It doesn't matter which one goes where, just in those two spots. Now for the actives, I made a habit of putting my active offense or AOs with my toggle and my active defense or AD powers with my slotted passive. By the way, if you need an active defense and nothing else seems appropriate, get Resurgence. You can get a good chunk of health back real fast. It's good stuff. Why play around with other things? All right. I need some more stuff. Let's get Self-Res, Thunder Return is what I'm using for that. And lastly, I wanted a range power that was kind of in my idiom, so Pulse Beam Rifle is what I use here. Alright. Now I have all my powers, and we're all set for my melee build. Next, we should change up the name of this build. Or change up the name of this from build 1 to something we could recognize. Melee DPS sums this build up. Make sure to hit the save button. And now when we hover the mouse over the build for F6, we can see our name for it. Yay! Alright. Remember when I said I had 2 slotted passives? Let's use that second one. So we want to use regeneration for times when we want to be less squishy. Maybe you popped into an alert, no one else has a shield over their head, maybe you were soloing in the QWZ and you aren't fully loaded out, maybe you were doing a cosmic and the healer or tank hit the wrong button and somehow you are the new temporary tank. Had that happen a couple times. This is one of those times when having something like this is really handy. Anyway, you want a build for being tougher, and on this build, we do have some Constitution for more health to help with that. Before we pop Regen into our build, we need to get our second build up. After selecting the tab for build 2, you can see we have nothing but default block. You'll also notice that in the build window, we are still looking at build 1. Now I'm selecting build 2 in the window, and I'm activating build 1 down below. There are all my pretty powers. Now going to use the update button. Right now it is lit blue, meaning I can use it because my active build, the one down below, is different from the build in the window. When I have the same build in both, the button grays out because there's nothing to copy from below. Going back to the build one as my active one, I'm calling up the update window. For each thing I have selected, I will update the build in the window to match what I have active on my character. And right now I have these powers and no equipment. I select powers, I click update. And now build 2 has the same power layout as build 1. The role did not change as build 2 had hybrid before and still does. So the main reason we were doing this is so I can replace quantum stabilizers with regeneration. So let's do that. And now when I select build 2, I am ready to regen. And if I want, in a moment's notice, I can go back to being melee DPS. Of course, this is also assuming I'm not in combat, because it takes like 2 minutes, I think, for you to be able to switch back and forth. Otherwise, it's just 10 seconds. Alright, so while we're at it, let's go ahead and put some gear on this toon. What I have is the leveling stuff from the trade paperback vendor. Even at 40, the stats are decent, so I'm not bothering to replace them until I'm ready to get like some distinguished or maybe justice gear on this toon. You'll notice as I pop in the gear below, it pops up in the window. Same build there. Now when we select build 2, we see no gear is here. So I hit update, deselect powers, and select equipment, and bam! I now have gear in both builds. Let's go ahead and put in the healing doohickeys. And yes, doohickeys is a technical term. And once we got all those in, we hit update again, and there they are, complete with colors for those devices. Screw around with the stars and colors for you. Ta-da! And ta-da! Alright, let's change the name to Regen Hybrid. Okay, so let's say for whatever reason you want to go tank. Admittedly, this is not a build I'm making for mostly tanking and generating threat. I don't have any challenge on any powers, I don't have any confront mods, I got none of that stuff. But if for some reason I want to get a bit more threat than normal, maybe I'm partnered up with somebody who's very squishy in the QWZ, or again, the whole alert situation, nobody else wants tank, fine, I'll do it. I can use regen in a defensive tank role, and doing so gets you a smidge more health, damage resistance, and threat generation. So it's not like it's a complete waste. We will select build 3 up here. This will eventually be for tanking. And down here we'll select build 2, which has all the powers, including regeneration. We will update all of it, not that it matters for costume and role. And then I'm going to go ahead and select tank here. And we'll change the name to Regen Tank. And Old Man Bob's your uncle. You have a tank build in build number 3. Alright, so what about builds 4, 5, and 6? Right now, they have nothing. Something I like to do in case I hit a wrong button or tab is set them to the same as the hybrid build. So I select my regen build below, make it active, I go up to build 4, hit update, select everything but costume. You can hit that too if you want, and then change the remaining to a simple hybrid build that isn't too squishy, can still do damage and doesn't get more threat than it should. And that concludes this video. I will do stuff with builds and costumes in another video. Thanks for watching, like, comment, and subscribe.